Is life unfair? Why does it seem that, good people get punished by life, God, existence on a regular basis, seemingly, while horrible monsters are showered in riches and success and glory? That's been going on for like as long as history has existed, basically, like the dawn of history. But I will put it to you that our perspective is slightly skewed here because we tend to think in the very short term. And while we're in the middle of the reign of injustice, if you like, which is pretty often, to be frank. But when you're knee deep in a really good one, really powerful bad group or bad guys or whatever, it can feel interminable, and a lot of people suffer in horrible ways, and many of them don't deserve it at all, unless there's maybe some strange karmic thing going on from past lives. But yeah. You got your house blown up by the Gestapo because in a past life something or other. I mean, that's kind of a cop out. My goal here, my intent, is to tell you the story of King Croesus, really, because he's a good example of our skewed perception. And I might give a couple of other examples after that, because his story is not unique at all. So Croesus was, I believe, the king of Lydia. You can read about him in Herodotus's history. He's a mythological figure, but he did exist, and he was rich. He was astoundingly, unimaginably, gold flowing out of his ears, rich. And he was powerful, and he was a king, and he invaded people, and it always worked out. And he had his armies, and he would invade, whatever the country. I don't know the names in antiquity, but always worked out. He would sack the city and leave with the gold, and ha ha ha, life is so good for me. So one day, Solon comes to town. Now, Solon, we don't remember him as much today, but in antiquity, he was a big deal. He wrote the laws of Athens. He was the one who transformed Athens as into a republic, like from a tyranny essentially to the republic we know and love, which fell around, shortly after, like in the year 400 or something like that. But that's not the topic here. The topic is that Solon is this wise, wise man. Again, another legendary figure. And he arrives, in Lydia, and Croesus, in his tub of gold, he's like, well, bring him here, okay? And so Solon comes to see Croesus. Hail, mighty king. So Croesus says, hey, you're a wise guy. Tell me, who is the happiest man in all of Greece? And Solon says, oh, it's easy. It's that guy plowing the field, 5 days from here. Name some guy. And Croesus says, what? How dare you say that this obscure nobody? It might have been, a politician. Doesn't matter. He was a nobody compared to Croesus, like the richest man in history to this day. So he gets pretty upset, Croesus, and he's like, how dare you say that somebody else is happier than me? Go away before I get your head, impaled on a pike or something, a golden pike. So Solon, takes the hint and leaves. But, Croesus, first of all, he loses his son soonly after that. So that, that does affect his happiness. But still, he's kind of relatively, somewhat still happy. And he says to himself, he says, Croesus, old man, what would cheer you up? Invading Persia, like, because he's basically invaded everybody, and all he has is Persia left to invade, and they're nobody. They're poor and they're weak. They have slings, and I mean, like a walk in the park. And he does what he always does, Croesus, and he goes to the oracle, like two oracles actually. The oracle at Delphi, a very famous oracle, and another other one, I forget which one. And they both say the same thing. Mighty Croesus, if you invade Persia, you will bring down a mighty empire. So he says to himself, there's no way there's a second meaning here. There's no way that this is going to bite me in the golden ass. So he invades, and his assistants, his viziers, his ministers, whatever, say, well, it's not so good. I mean, that's not that great an idea. Are you really sure we need to invade these people? Because, first of all, they have nothing we want. I mean, they have nothing. And so we're invading them just for the laws. And second of all, once they see how rich we are, they are going to want some of those riches for themselves. Right now, they don't even know such riches exist. So when they see us in our golden armor and stuff like that, they're gonna want some of that bling. But Croesus, he's having none of it because of the oracle, and he invades Persia. And what do you think happens? He loses, and he loses his mighty empire because the mighty empire that was doomed if he invaded was his, right? And essentially, from that point on, he's enslaved by King Cyrus, who becomes a legendary king by his own right, but partly for that reason. But mighty King Croesus, he ends up a slave, and he essentially advises Cyrus and tells him, you know what, be careful. Be careful about how powerful you think you are, because it can turn on a dime. And even if your own head is on the dime, does not make the turnaround less ironic and excruciating. So what's the lesson here? Life may not appear always just, but one thing that life doesn't like is disequilibrium. It doesn't like when somebody is pushing and it's always the same person pushing in the same direction. It doesn't like force being applied only from one side, essentially. So if there's a push, the life will send a counter push. This is inevitable. Okay, so people who are good at coming to power and becoming rich, quite often the trick is that they can kind of sense that, and they can kind of ride that wave, and they see the opportunities and they kind of move along following that, right? So the Taoist kind of way. But even that doesn't last forever, and like the short version is that usually what happens to those people, I mean, there comes a time when they overreach, and the stars were singing their praises and they could do no wrong, and that lasted almost like supernaturally for years and years and years and years. And so they think it's going to keep happening forever, and they wake up one morning and the Reichstag is on fire and they're in the basement, and they kill themselves, stuff like that. So yeah, Mussolini died on a meat hook. He was hung on a meat hook, upside down. If you look across history, you will find that what happens sometimes is that, like, the imbalance, the injustice, can last for a few generations, sometimes even longer than that, but never lasts forever. And there does come a time when the ill-gotten gains have to be reimbursed with interest. And the longer the ill-gotten gains are in the possession of the unjust, the higher the interest. The higher they fall, higher they rise, the lower they fall. Yeah. So it does not always punish only those people. I mean, when the flood comes, it comes for everybody. That does happen. But yeah, the fact is that we should remember that though we don't see the, let us say, invisible forces that balance the world, they are there. And when the bad people, let us say, overreach for long enough, they will 100% get, as they say, what is coming to them. And I don't say that to mean ill on anybody. I'm just saying that in the real life, that's how it actually works. So if you're in despair right now, because you think the bad guys are winning and all that sort of stuff, yeah, keep that in mind. Remember old King Croesus. So that was it for today. If you want to support what I do, which is this, but also I talk about philosophy and science fiction and Jungian individuation, many things like that. The best way really is to support me on Patreon, because YouTube is now run by the bad people. So it's basically destroying everything. It's very difficult. It's basically dead, YouTube, right now. So if by some miracle you see this, I mean, I will continue posting here for the foreseeable future. But if you're interested in what I do, Patreon is a good option. Also have a Substack. Anyway, I hope you're doing good. Hang in there. And times are tough, but we will make it through. So take care. See you soon. Live long and prosper. Ciao.